Welcome back to All Things Soggy Buns, the podcast where we explore the delicious world of one of Maryland's favorite food trucks and catering services. Today, we're diving deep into one of their most popular menu items,
Yeah.
smoked mac and cheese.
Ooh.
We've got Brad Prose's recipe and blog post from Chiles and Smoke as our guide.
Awesome.
I have a feeling this is going to get cheesy.
Yeah, absolutely. Smoked mac and cheese is having a real moment, and soggy buns is definitely at the forefront of that trend.
Yeah.
What's interesting is it's not as simple as just throwing some mac and cheese in a smoker.
Right.
There's a real art to getting it right.
So what makes soggy buns and this recipe stand out from the crowd?
Well, first off, both Soggy Buns and Brad are adamant about using real, high-quality cheese.
Okay.
No processed cheese shortcuts here. The recipe calls for a blend of sharp cheddar, Gouda, and Monterey Jack.
I'm all about that cheese breakdown. What does each one contribute?
So think of sharp cheddar as your backbone. It provides that sharp, tangy flavor that cuts through the richness of the dish and really complements the smokiness. Gouda is your smooth operator, bringing that incredible meltability and a silky texture to the sauce. And finally, Monterey Jack is the creamy hero, responsible for that luxurious, velvety feel. That makes mac and cheese so irresistible.
And I've made mac and cheese at home, and I'll admit, I've used pre-shredded cheese.
Sure.
What's the big deal about shredding your own? Is it really worth the extra effort?
It absolutely is, especially when you're aiming for that soggy buns level of quality. See, pre-shredded cheese is often coated with cellulose to prevent it from clumping in the bag.
Oh.
But that cellulose can interfere with how smoothly the cheese melts, sometimes giving the sauce a grainy texture.
Interesting.
Soggy Buns knows that hand shredding ensures the smoothest, creamiest mac and cheese possible.
So it's all about that attention to detail. You know, it's funny, I've never really thought about the science behind a good mac and cheese.
There's more to it than meets the eye. Brad's recipe starts with a classic roux, which is a mixture of butter and flour cooked together. That roux is the foundation for a smooth, stable cheese sauce. Then you slowly whisk in warm milk or cream, and that creates the base for the cheese. It's a traditional technique, but the cheese choices and the smoking process elevate it to something really special.
And that's where Soggy Buns comes in, taking that traditional base and adding their own touch of magic.
Exactly.
Now, one thing that really caught my eye in the recipe was the variety of cheese variations.
Right.
It sounded incredible.
This is where things get really fun, and it's something Soggy Buns could really capitalize on.
Okay.
You know, they could offer a base smoked mac and cheese and then let customers choose their own cheese adventure.
Ooh, I love that. Build your own mac.
Exactly. So Brad breaks it down into flavor foundation cheese and melting cheeses
Okay.
for the foundation. You could go with white cheddar. For a slightly milder, sharp cheddar flavor, Gruyere for a nutty, salty complexity. It's known for being particularly creamy when melted. Or Colby if you want something a bit milder than the cheddar.
Okay, those are like the base notes, the foundation of the flavor.
Yes.
What about the melters?
This is where you can get creative. Pepper Jack adds a spicy kick, while Brie, rind removed of course, brings a nutty and fruity richness. Havarti offers a unique alternative to Monterey Jack. While Munster melts beautifully and has a buttery flavor, Brad suggests pairing Munster with a stronger cheese for balance. And then there's good old Colby Jack for a mild and reliable melt.
Wow, the possibilities are practically endless. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure cheese story.
I like that.
And you know what makes all of this even better?
What?
It's all happening on a food truck.
There's just something about truck food that makes it taste even better, isn't there?
Right.
Maybe it's the atmosphere, the excitement of discovering something new.
It's an experience, that's for sure. And speaking of experience, if you're in Maryland and looking for an incredible food truck experience, you have to check out Soggy Buns.
Yes.
Their website, soggybuns.com, with a Z, has their menu, schedule, and everything you need to know. Don't miss out.
I'm already making plans to track him down. Now let's talk about the toppings and add-ins, because this is where things get really wild.
Hit me with those flavor bombs.
So Brad starts with some classics. Parmesan cheese for that salty, nutty kick.
Okay.
Toasted panko breadcrumbs for some crunchy texture. Imagine that golden brown goodness. On top of creamy mac and cheese.
Yeah.
And of course, crumbled bacon. Because, well, bacon. It's a mac and cheese trifecta. But I know there's more.
Oh, yeah.
What other exciting add-ins does Brad suggest? What is Soggy Buns doing to take this to the next level?
Hold on to your hats because this is where things get interesting.
Okay.
Brad suggests Hatch chiles for a buttery flavor. And he even mentions a roasted Hatch chili jam for some sweet heat. Then there's jalapenos, and he makes an important distinction. Fresh jalapenos are super spicy,
Okay.
while pickled jalapenos have more of a tangy kick. You'd want to make sure those are drained before adding them to the mac and cheese. He even mentions smoked pickled jalapenos.
Okay, stop right there. Smoked pickled jalapenos.
That's a flavor combo I need in my life.
Right. It's genius. And to balance out all that richness, he suggests scallions for a touch of freshness. Their subtle, herby flavor is a great contrast. And then he throws a curveball. Blue cheese.
Blue cheese.
Mm.
And mac and cheese. I never would have thought of that.
It sounds surprising, but Brad describes it as a delicious addition that adds a whole other dimension of flavor. He even suggests pairing it with cayenne pepper for a buffalo sauce twist.
My mind is officially blown. That's some next-level mac and cheese creativity right there.
And it really speaks to the versatility of the dish. You can go classic, you can get adventurous, you can even go spicy.
And, Soggy Buns is going to execute all of these flavors flawlessly.
Right.
They're not just following a recipe. They're truly understanding the techniques and the science behind it.
Exactly. They're masters of execution. Think about all the steps involved. Cooking the pasta al dente, making that velvety smooth roux, adding the warm dairy, incorporating the cheese just right, and then smoking it to perfection. Each step is crucial.
They're not cutting corners. And that's what makes them so special. They're dedicated to quality. And it shows in every cheesy, smoky bite. But as much as I love hearing about all these fancy variations, I'm also thinking about the home cooks out there who might be a little intimidated by the idea of smoking mac and cheese.
I get that. It can seem daunting. But luckily, Brad has a whole section dedicated to pro tips that can help anyone achieve creamy perfection.
Okay, let's dive into those tips. What are some of the key takeaways for someone trying this at home? What can we learn from Soggy Buns' expertise?
First up, use cooked macaroni noodles.
Okay.
You're not adding uncooked pasta to the cheese sauce. The pasta needs to be cooked al dente before you combine everything and put it in the smoker.
Makes sense. What else?
And remember what we said about shredding your own cheese. It's worth repeating. Pre-shredded cheese can give you that grainy texture, and that's not what we're going for here.
Right.
We want silky smooth, Soggy Buns level creaminess.
Noted. Give me another pro tip.
Don't go overboard with greasy mix-ins. Too much fat can break down the cheese sauce and make it greasy. So maybe go easy on the pork belly or brisket.
Okay.
And speaking of things that can affect the texture, make sure your cheese is at room temperature before you add it to the sauce. Cold cheese can shock the sauce and cause clumping.
See, this is why I love these deep dives. I'm learning so much. What else you got?
Last but definitely not least, remove the sauce from the heat before you add the cheese. This prevents the cheese from overcooking and getting clumpy. It's all about those little details.
It's like a masterclass in mac and cheese.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've leveled up my culinary game just by listening to this. Now, before we move on, I have to remind everyone to check out Soggy Buns' website, soggybuns.com. That's buns with a Z.
Yes. You can see their full menu, drool over some amazing photos, and find out where their food truck will be next.
It's a must-visit for any mac and cheese lover, especially if you're in Maryland. All right, now that we've covered the basics, let's tackle some of the frequently asked questions about smoked mac and cheese.
Let's do it. I think we've got some good ones.
I know I do.
So the first question that comes up a lot is, can I prepare smoked mac and cheese ahead of time?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, but with a caveat.
I'm intrigued. What's the catch?
While you can technically prep it ahead, the creaminess might take a slight hit. That super smooth, velvety texture might be a tad less pronounced after sitting for a while. But here's where Soggy Buns really shines. They're all about freshness. So even though you can make it ahead, they're whipping up each batch fresh to ensure that ultimate creamy experience for their customer.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Why compromise on perfection?
Right.
What other burning questions do people have?
Another one Brad addresses is, can I smoke the mac and cheese in a skillet? Again, the answer is yes. But a larger skillet is necessary to accommodate all that cheesy goodness. And this highlights another reason why Soggy Buns stands out. They've got professional-grade equipment that's perfectly designed for even cooking. And that irresistible smoky flavor.
It's all about the right tools for the job. especially when you're dealing with something as deliciously delicate as smoked mac and cheese, as we've been talking about this recipe. And Soggy Buns' approach, I can't help but think about all the different flavor profiles they could create. It's like a blank canvas, just waiting for their culinary creativity to shine through.
I'm right there with you. Imagine a special of the week featuring a unique smoked mac and cheese creation.
Okay.
They could even incorporate seasonal ingredients or local flavors to really make it stand out.
I love that idea. A summer special with smoked corn and roasted poblano peppers, maybe with a sprinkle of cotija cheese on top. Or a fall version with butternut squash, sage, and toasted pecans. The possibilities are endless. You know what else I just thought of?
What?
A dessert smoked mac and cheese.
Wait, dessert smoked mac and cheese? Now you've really got my attention. What are you thinking?
Okay, hear me out. A base of creamy mascarpone cheese with a hint of brown sugar and vanilla bean, smoked over applewood chips for that subtle sweetness. Then you top it with a crumble of cinnamon spiced graham crackers and a drizzle of salt and caramel.
You've officially blown my mind. The smoky sweetness of the applewood would complement those flavors perfectly. I'm officially on board with dessert smoked mac and cheese.
Right. Okay, before we get too carried away
Yeah?
with our culinary daydreams, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. But before we do, I want to give another shout out to Soggy Buns and their amazing website, soggybuns.com with the Z.
Absolutely.
Go check them out, explore their menu, see where they're popping up next, and get ready for a mac and cheese experience like no other.
And I have a feeling we'll be revisiting the world of soggy buns very soon. There's just too much deliciousness to explore.
Agreed. Now, before we say goodbye, I have a final thought-provoking question for our listeners. Based on everything we've learned today about Soggy Buns' amazing smoked mac and cheese, given all the cheese variations and add-in options we discussed, what would your ultimate Soggy Buns smoked mac and cheese creation be? What cheese combo would you go for, and what add-ins would make it truly epic?
That's a tough one. There are so many delicious possibilities. If I had to choose, I think I'd start with a base of sharp cheddar
Okay.
Gruyere for that nutty complexity, and maybe a touch of pepper jack for a little kick.
Okay, I'm already drooling. What about add-ins? What's going on top of this cheesy masterpiece?
For me, it's all about balance. I'd go for some crispy bacon and crumbles, a sprinkle of those smoked pickled jalapenos we talked about, and maybe just a touch of blue cheese for that unexpected tang.
You've created a flavor explosion. I can practically taste it. Listeners, we want to hear from you. Head over to our social media pages and tell us about your dream smoked mac and cheese creation.
Yeah.
What cheese combos would you choose? What add-ins would you pile on?
We might even share some of our favorites on the next episode. And don't forget to visit soggybuns.com with a Z for all the delicious details. You can find their menu locations and all the information you need to get your hands on their incredible smoked mac and cheese.
Thanks for joining us on this cheesy, smoky deep dive into the world of Soggy Buns. We'll see you next time for another delicious adventure.
Until then, happy eating.
Thank you for listening to the All Things Soggy Buns podcast.